In the heart of rural Maine sits a house that, according to one man, serves as a portal between our world and the next. This is the story of Kent Burris, the Lamb House, and a paranormal phenomenon that divided a small community and raised questions that go far beyond the supernatural. Kent Burris arrived in Carmel, Maine in 2014, fleeing the heat and chaos of Florida for the quiet solitude of rural New England. He rented what locals called the Lamb House, an unremarkable two-story home on a dead-end street. At 40-something years old, Kent described himself as an ordinary man seeking an ordinary life. What he found was anything but. For the first few months, life in the Lamb House was peaceful. Kent settled into the rhythms of small-town Maine, the quiet nights, the changing seasons, the sense of anonymity that comes with being a newcomer in a town where families go back generations. But by winter of 2014, that peace would be shattered. It began, Kent would claim later, with small things. Doors that would close on their own, footsteps in empty rooms, the sound of voices when he was alone in the house. At first, he did what any rational person would do. He looked for logical explanations. Old houses settle, wind creates sounds, imagination fills the spaces between sleep and waking. But as weeks turned to months, Kent became convinced that something was sharing his home, something that had been there long before he arrived and would remain long after he left. The dead, he believed, were trying to communicate with the living. Kent began documenting everything: temperature readings, electromagnetic field measurements, hours of audio recordings, searching for what paranormal investigators call electronic voice phenomena, the voices of the dead captured on recording devices. Night after night, he sat alone in the darkness, asking questions to empty rooms and listening for answers. By 2017, Kent had accumulated what he claimed were hundreds of hours of paranormal evidence. His recordings, he insisted, captured the voices of multiple spirits, men, women, and even children, who had some connection to the Lamb House. Some seemed friendly, offering simple greetings. Others appeared angry, demanding that he leave their home. Kent developed theories about his ghostly residence. He believed the basement was a particular hotspot of activity, where the spirits congregated and where their voices were strongest. He claimed to have identified reoccurring personalities, a woman he called Margaret, a child named Tommy, and an angry male presence he referred to only as the Shadow Dude. Word of Kent's experience began to spread through Carmel's tight-knit community of 2,700 residents. In a town where the biggest news was usually the annual Blueberry Festival, tales of a haunted house on the outskirts created a mixture of fascination and skepticism. Some neighbors reported seeing Kent at all hours, carrying equipment and talking to himself in his yard. In November of 2017, Kent launched his YouTube channel, Ghosts of Carmel Maine. His stated mission was simple: to prove to the world that the spirit realm exists and that communication with the dead is possible. His videos were amateur production, shaky camera work, poor lighting, and often lengthy recordings of seemingly empty rooms punctuated by unexplained sounds. Despite their rough production quality, Kent's videos began attracting viewers. Paranormal enthusiasts, skeptics, and the simply curious tuned in to watch his latest findings. Comment sections became battlegrounds between believers who praised Kent's dedication and doubters who dismissed his evidence as fraud or delusion. Kent welcomed both perspectives, claiming he had nothing to hide and everything to prove. What set Kent apart from other paranormal investigators was his insistence that he wanted nothing in return for his work. He refused to monetize his videos, declined sponsorship offers, and explicitly stated that he would never accept donations or payment for his research. His only goal, that he claimed, was truth. By 2019, Kent's story had caught the attention of local media. WABI-TV, Banger's NBC affiliate, featured his claims in a segment about paranormal activity in Maine. The coverage was respectful but cautious, presenting Kent's experiences while noting that no independent verification of his claims had been conducted. The media attention brought both validation and scrutiny. Kent's subscriber count jumped following the television coverage, but it also attracted the attention of skeptics and paranormal investigators who questioned his methods and motives. Comments on his videos became increasingly polarized. with some viewers conducting their own investigations into Kent's background. Kent responded to increased attention by upgrading his equipment and expanding his documentation efforts. He installed security cameras throughout the house, set up continuous audio monitoring, and began conducting longer, more detailed EVP sessions. The more evidence he gathered, the more convinced he became that the Lamb House was among the most actively haunted locations in New England. In 2020, independent filmmaker James Mitchell became interested in Kent's story. Initially drawn by the compelling nature of his claims, Mitchell began what would become a 2-year investigation into Kent Burris and the alleged hauntings of the Lamb House. What he discovered would challenge everything Kent had claimed about his paranormal experiences. Mitchell's investigation revealed a complex picture of Kent Burris. Public records showed a history of residential instability, with Kent moving frequently between Florida and Maine over several years. Social media posts suggested involvement in previous paranormal claims in Florida, including allegations of hauntings at multiple locations where Kent had lived. More troubling were the patterns Mitchell discovered in Kent's relationships. Former roommates and romantic partners described a man prone to elaborate stories and attention-seeking behavior. Several individuals who requested anonymity alleged that Kent had a tendency to fabricate dramatic situations and seemed to believe his own fabrications. Mitchell arranged for an independent paranormal investigation of the Lamb House, conducted by experienced researchers with professional-grade equipment. Over the course of a week in October of 2021, investigators monitored every room of the house for 24 hours a day. The results were inconclusive, but telling. While the investigators recorded hundreds of hours of data, they found no evidence of paranormal activity beyond what could be explained by normal environmental factors: house settling, traffic vibrations, electrical interference, and the sounds of small animals in the walls and attic. The basement, which Kent claimed was the most active area of the house, showed no unusual readings. Temperature variations were consistent with normal air circulation patterns. Electromagnetic field registered within normal ranges for a house with standard electrical systems. Most significantly, no EVP evidence was captured during the week-long investigation. When presented with the findings of the independent investigation, Kent's response was defensive but predictable. He claimed that the presence of skeptical investigators had caused the spirits to retreat. He suggested that his personal connection to the entities was necessary for manifestation. He maintained that his years of evidence spoke for themselves, but Mitchell's investigation had uncovered something else. A former associate of Kent's named David Kyer, who had briefly worked with Kent on the paranormal investigations before distancing himself from the project. Kyer's allegations would prove to be the most damaging to Kent's credibility. In a recorded phone interview, Kyer alleged that he had witnessed Kent manipulating equipment to create false readings, editing audio files to insert voices that weren't present during recording sessions, and using simple techniques to create sound and movements that appeared supernatural on camera. Most damaging of all, Kyer claimed that Kent had admitted to him that some of the evidence was fabricated, justifying it by saying people needed to believe in the supernatural. Dr. Sarah Collins, a psychology professor specializing in belief systems and delusion, provided context for Mitchell's findings without specifically diagnosing Kent. According to Dr. Collins, cases like this often begin with genuine experiences, or what people perceive as genuine experiences, but over time, the line between reality and fantasy becomes increasingly blurred. The psychology literature is filled with cases of individuals who begin with minor fabrications or misinterpretations, but gradually construct elaborate belief systems around those initial experiences. The process often involves a feedback loop. The person creates evidence to support their beliefs, the evidence reinforces the beliefs, and the cycle continues with increasing intensity. But psychology can't answer every question about Kent Burris and the Lamb House. Even if some evidence is fabricated, does that invalidate all of it? Can a person's sincere belief in their experiences make those experiences real to them, even if they're not objectively verifiable? And what responsibility does the community have when one of the members makes claims that challenge consensus reality? Mitchell's investigation and its findings created ripples through Carmel's small community. Some residents felt vindicated in their skepticism about Kent's claims. Others worried about the impact of the town's reputation and property values. A few continued to believe that something genuinely supernatural was occurring at the Lamb House. The controversy divided opinions but didn't significantly disrupt daily life in Carmel. Kent continued living in the Lamb House, continued his investigations, and continued posting videos to his YouTube channel. His subscriber count remained steady, with a core group of believers who dismissed the allegations against him as part of a broader conspiracy to suppress evidence of the paranormal. The comments sections of Kent's videos became philosophical battlegrounds, with debates about the nature of evidence, the reliability of personal experience, and the difference between believing and knowing. The discussions revealed as much about the viewers as they did about Kent's claims. People's willingness to believe often seemed to depend more on their existing worldview than on the quality of evidence presented. Following the release of Mitchell's documentary in 2022, Kent's online presence became more subdued. While he continued posting videos claiming paranormal evidence, the frequency decreased and the tone became more defensive. He rarely responded to comments or engaged with critics, focusing instead on addressing his core audience of believers. Life in Carmel returned to its normal rhythms. The excitement over the haunted house faded as other stories captured public attention. Kent Burris became just another resident of a small town, notably only for his unusual hobby and the controversy that had briefly made the community famous. Yet, questions remained. If Kent's evidence was fabricated, why did he never profit from it? Why did he welcome scrutiny rather than avoiding it? And what explained the consistency of his claims over the years of documentation? Mitchell's investigation raised more questions than it answered about the nature of belief, truth, and the stories we tell ourselves. As of 2025, Kent Burris still lives in the Lamb House. His YouTube channel, Ghosts of Carmel Maine, has accumulated over 239,000 subscribers and more than 100 videos. He continues to claim regular contact with supernatural entities, though his audience has largely stabilized into a core group of dedicated believers and curious skeptics. The equipment still runs every night. The recordings continue. Kent still speaks to empty rooms and listens for responses that may or may not come. Whether driven by genuine experience, psychological need, or something else entirely, his dedication to his mission remains unwavering. Perhaps that's the most unsettling aspect of Kent Burris' story. Not whether ghosts exist, but the persistence of belief in the face of contradictory evidence. The real haunting may not be supernatural at all, but psychological. The haunting of a man by his own need to believe in something beyond the ordinary world. The truth about the Lamb House may never be definitively established. Kent Burris continues to search for proof of life after death, while skeptics continue to search for proof of deception. Both sides remain convinced that they're right, creating their own kind of haunting, the haunting of certainty in an uncertain world. In Carmel, Maine, in a house at the end of a quiet street, the investigation continues. Equipment records in silence, cameras monitor empty rooms, and somewhere between belief and skepticism, between the explicable and the mysterious, the real story of Kent Burris and the Ghosts of Carmel Maine remains elusive. Head over to Ghosts of Carmel Maine and subscribe if you like creepy videos. He puts a lot of effort into those. Thanks for watching another episode of the Horror Expo, and I appreciate your time. If you enjoy videos like this, please give it a like and subscribe because every little bit helps. There's also a new Patreon if you're into that type of thing. Thanks again, and I'll see you on the next one.